Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Christian Irvine, Green Beret from the 20th Special Forces Group. He is also the founder of Veritas Ratings, which is a consulting company powered by special operations veterans for all veterans. We understand the culture of sucking it up and believe that you shouldn't be punished for fighting through things when others couldn't or wouldn't. We are here to connect you with our elite network of trusted advisors, consultants, and established relationships to fix a disability rating. I will have links to his and their socials in the show description. As always, today's episode is brought to you by the Precision Wellness Group. Guys, get your hormones checked. Talk to Dr. Bosley. Don't listen to some influencer. Don't even listen to me. Talk to your doctor. So, Precision Wellness Group helps you restore balance, unlock vitality, and fuel your momentum through bioidentical hormone therapy and evidence-based personalized telemedicine. Dr. Taylor Bosley is a board-certified physician, a U.S. Army veteran, and a former Green Beret. He knows where you've been, where you want to go, and how to get you there. And he's an actual doctor. He can prescribe you actual medicine. So if TRT, HRT, hormones, testosterone, peptides, GLP-1s, aesthetics are something you've been looking into for a while now, or just starting to, look no further than Precision Wellness Group in Southern Pines, North Carolina, in person, telemedicine, walk in, use code LKO20 on your initial consultation paperwork to save 20% on said consultation. I do appreciate you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Christian, is it Irvine or Irvin? How do you say
Irvin.
it? Irvin, welcome to Lesser Known Operators, man. Thanks for coming on. I think Irvine, he's the chef, right? He's the professional chef.
Yeah, Robert Irvine. Yeah, spelt the same way. I don't know why or when it started, but I guess my whole family's always said Irvin. So
It's the American slang in us, right? He's British, I think, isn't he?
yes, yeah, he's Brit.
He's always doing something. That's one thing. People are like, who's your dream interview? And I look directly at him. I go, Gordon Ramsay. And they're like, don't you do special operations interviews? I said, yeah, but I've seen every show that Gordon Ramsay's ever done. And I would love to meet that guy. He taught me how to cook. So
I've
that's
always heard
my thing.
that he's like a great dude. You know, a lot of what's put on the show is obviously for the value that it holds, you know, being shocking or hilarious, things like that. But it's actually kind of contrary to how he actually conducts himself in person. So that'd be a neat one.
I hope so. I work to get famous enough to where I can meet Gordon Ramsay. That's one of my side missions, as if I'm playing life as a video game. One of my side quests is to get famous enough to where I can meet Gordon Ramsay. I would be like a little kid. I've got his pans. I watch all his shows. I'm always trying to figure out what he's doing. I go to his restaurants. Yeah, he taught me how to cook, and I love everything he does. Even he's calmed down a lot in his shows and things like
Yeah.
that. Now he's a lot more, but so some of his new shows, the Kitchen Nightmares or who did Hotel Hell, and now he's got this new one, Undercover something, and they're all fine. So everybody's got their thing, and that's like SF guys. You work, and the dude's like a 18 Bravo that can barely keep his hand receipt straight. But on the weekends he's playing Warhammer 40,000, and he's got this fucking setup in his house, and he's day trading. He's like makes $100,000 a day, loses $100,000 a day, and he drives. He's got like a classic car collection. You go,
Yeah.
man,
Like
at
he
work, you're
accidentally
like,
bought Bitcoin when it was $8. He's just
yeah,
holding on.
yeah. And you go, man, at work, you're like illiterate. Why are you? He's like, I don't know, man. It's just, that's what I'm good at. And that's what I do. It's like, this doesn't make any sense, but sure. That's how SF guys are. They're just,
It's kind of
full
fun
of,
to see other guys, you know, succeed, right? Like maybe they were hobbyists when they were active duty, and then they start life and they actually have time to invest in that thing that they like to do, and it turns out they're really good at it. And so it's really cool whenever you see, one of the brothers have that type of success. It's almost
yeah,
like they were accidentally an operator and they were meant to do that thing.
well, now so you were active first, and so was I. I mean, I was only active, and now you're in the Guard, but it's all the time. It's you're active, and there's nothing else, especially if you're busy. If the team's busy or the company's busy, there's no family. There's no taking time off. There's no hobbies. There's no sobriety, and there's no happiness a lot of the time. But these guard guys, I'm just learning the process now with hanging out with the guys at 519. And, we're getting spun up all weekend. They're getting their NCOERs done. Everything's getting signed, kicked back. And I'm like, oh, this is, they're really, and then just Sunday comes and then everybody just goes home. And like, he goes back to being a lawyer. This guy goes back to being an FBI agent. This guy goes back to running the school. And I go, this is fucking weird, man. This is so weird.
Yeah, coming out of fifth group, man, where you're just gone all the time. At least during the GWAT, it was a really grueling ops tempo. There was a guy when I was still finishing the Q course, and he came back to do a second language cycle, and he'd been at fifth group for like 4 years. And I said, "Well, I'm going to fifth group. Tell me how. Give me the gouge. What's up?" And he goes, I specifically asked, "Where's a good place to live?" I have no intention of being on base, right? So where's a good satellite neighborhood or whatever to live in? He's like, I can't really tell you. I was like, what do you mean you can't tell me? You've been there 4 years. He's like, I have an apartment. It has a milk crate, a TV, and a recliner. I've been home 4 months in the last 48 months. Everything's in storage. Like I have an apartment to have a mailbox. That's it. I was like, I can't tell you where to live because I don't know anything about the town. I've been gone the entire time. I was like, wow, this is going to be fun.
What year was that?
That was 2010.
2010. Yeah. God, yeah. I mean, everybody's hopping and popping, and just back and forth. Clean your gear, do 100% inventory, maybe take block leave. You got a school, you got this, right in the train off and right back out the door.
Yeah, it was, one deployment, one school a year was like the sort of like happy, the boss was happy if you did that. Um, but like you were alluding to, like getting in the National Guard when I transferred over to 20th Special Forces Group, um, it was a lot different. So I remember someone from the B team called and said, "Hey, do you want to do a J set?" I said, "Sure, that sounds fun. Like let's do it." But I'm kind of tired of going to the Middle East, right? Like obviously that was fifth group's AO, and every group was participating there because there was, the operations tempo was so high. And I was like, you know what, I'm kind of over the sand. And he goes, Middle East? Why would we do a JSET there? We don't do JSETs to the Middle East. We're going to Poland. I was like, wow, a country where they don't speak Arabic or, a Persian dialect? This could be a lot of fun. And get this, I mean, the best part yet to come. I get, in active duty mindset, I get all my gear squared away right away. Like I pull everything, fresh out of the closet because it's packed up, ready for the next deployment. And, I get all my paperwork turned in from active duty to the guard to make sure all that's squared away. And I follow up and I'm like, so, is this still the timeline? Like, we're pre-mobbing this date and getting ready to hop out this date and actually get on the bird this date. And he's like, well, we really needed an 18 Delta. We just didn't process the paperwork. I'm like, so that's how it is in the guard. And they just, patch something else in there. And I'm presuming they found an 18 Delta, maybe a senior 68 whiskey somewhere. But it was just because the state didn't feel like doing the paperwork. So you're off deployment. And I went
Yeah.
back and told my wife, and she's like, this is a lot different than fifth group. I was like, yeah, no kidding.
Oh yeah. Let's see. How do I word this story? We needed a username and password, right, from somebody, and I was like, all right, where are they? Well, they're in the guard. And I go, okay, let's drill. Let's get a hold of him. Oh, we don't know where he is. Wait. I'm like, well, what, let's just get a hold of him. I was like, well, we can't. Well, we just don't know where he's at. And I think at that point, I went, how's that possible? Like my head exploded, and I just went and sat in a chair, and I went, what the fuck is going on here?
Dude, I got a ride back. The last time I was at drill, I got a ride back with one of my buddies who was a fifth group guy too. So we hang out. We were neighbors at fifth group, and now we're in the same company. And so that's kind of cool, right? Our kids get along, our wives know each other. But he gave me a ride. I stayed at his house. He gave me a ride back to his place. And so I just left my truck, you know, outside of the cadre hooch. And like Sunday afternoon rolls around, and one of the other SF guys like shoots me a text, and he's like, "Hey, where are you?" I was like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm driving home. It's Sunday, like, drill's over. He goes, well, I didn't see you at all yesterday, but your truck was out front and I couldn't find you anywhere. N- He didn't call me. He didn't even
Oh,
text me. He just like walked around because he saw my truck and he just spent the entire day just sort of looking. It's like, dude, there's a lot quicker way to go from flash to bang if you're trying to get a hold of me. Use a phone. That was
that's
it.
all right. Everything's different though. The guard's
Yeah.
different. There's 50 different National Guards people. That was when I went. I went. So there's no the state lines. No, that's a different military. That's a different. Even if they're in the same, even if they're in the same command, they're in a different military. Like they have some control over them. Like 19th Group has control over the battalions, kinda. A little bit, but that guard, those soldiers still belong to that state's National Guard.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, what the fuck is this, man?
Yeah.
So,
And I mean,
yeah,
the biggest thing too is the funding lines.
yeah,
Like obviously it was complicated enough. Well, I always thought it was complicated enough on active duty, but with state, you have like state activations for hurricanes, which we don't really participate in because they use the other guard guys for that. But then like air, right? So like if you got to requal as a JTAC, like, who's paying for air? Is it big National Guard? Is it, if it's birds that are taken off from a guard unit, an air guard unit in Florida supporting, SF guys in Florida, is that different? Who deconflicts that? And it's just like I went a year without getting paid. So eventually I stopped going to drill. It wasn't like I was bitter. I was just like, I went and talked to Chief. I'm like, Chief, I'm going, I'm coming from Nashville, Tennessee to get down a drill. I'm not I'm not trying to like, throw a flare, in the punch bowl here, but I haven't been paid in a year. And I followed up, I went through S1 and checked this and checked that. And he goes, and I love our chief, man. He just great dude. He's like, you know what? If I wasn't getting paid, I wouldn't show up either. Don't show up until they figure it out. I was like, oh, well, once I passed that on, they figured it out real quick. Get this. I was listed as medically retired on paper, like, not just on a spreadsheet. Like they opened the binder and they're like, oh, is this your name? I was like, yeah, it says medically retired. And I had never put in for medical retirement. I've never had a line of duty. I mean nothing. So they just fabricated that one and turned my pay off one year.
that's why I'm currently, a civilian, because you can, all you kids listening at home, you can get out of the military and go into the National Guard, keep your beret and everything, and then file for your disability. But if you get out of the military as a medically retired, ooh, not possible. Not possible. That's what I'm running into now. And
Do you
so
have an issue
I
with your disability?
no, 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 I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm medically retired, but I have a code 4, so you can't re-enlist under a code
I
4
see what you're
medical
saying.
retirement.
Yeah.
So, I've been bugging everybody about it going, because I'm a firm believer there's a waiver for everything. So I've been bugging everybody up. I'm up to colonel level. I'm like, hey, sir, can you help me out here? But I flew out there to 519 for the SFRE, and we're at the gas station, and two of the guys walk by and go, "Ah, there's a 1-star over at the a camp right now." And the guy I was with, he's like, I don't want to be messing with a general. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we hung out, and then we drove over to the armory, and the general and his staff walk out, and I walk in, I go, who is that? And they're like, oh, that was the National Guard CG. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I missed my chance to ask the guy
Yeah.
that I want to get in front of, if, sir, what can I do to get back in here? Or what do I need to do? And I missed him by 30 seconds. And I told him, he's like, why would you want to come see a general? I was like, I want to come back in the guard and do the SWID thing. I can do that. Even though I can't be on a team, I can come back in and still
Yeah.
help. And that guy could have got me back in.
I mean, we call training company the VA team because
Yeah.
everyone's got, a bunch of time. Everyone's got 100% disability for the most part. If not, I usually wind up helping them. But, still able to lend, knowledge and experience and, sort of shape these new folks coming in. And, some of them, you got to flush the turds, right? For some of you listening at home, you're turds and you're going to get flushed, right? That's just statistically speaking, going to happen. But for some of
The
the other ones,
views and opinions of the guests of lesser known operators do not reflect the management or the staff here at lesser known operators. But yeah,
yeah,
you're
no,
right.
those are the views and opinions of training company, 3rd Battalion, 20th Special Forces Group. And some of them just need to learn and they need to grow a little bit, right? And they can come back out and go again. But it would be hilarious if you're chasing that general like out of the gas station, banging on the window. What's that guy want? He just wants to get back in the National Guard. Literally
Yeah.
beating down the door to get back in the National Guard.
Well, the sergeant major, he's like, "What were you going to ask him?" I was like, with a straight face, I'd have asked him if he could get me back in. Like, then I don't have to ask anybody else ever again until I meet the president. Like, I don't have to worry about it because everybody else tells me no. But I want, I had no idea as an active duty guy, no idea how the National Guard worked because we think it's
No, it's an enigma.
just a bunch. Yeah, you think it's just people pretending. And I go, oh, these guys are squared the fuck away because they have real careers. And you don't put
That
two and two
was
together because you're
You're
doing it every
absolutely right.
day.
You're
You're
absolutely right.
doing,
One of the
yeah,
things I did a J set down south a few years ago with the 20th group team. And fortunately, our team sergeant was a guy I knew from 5th group. He was a Bravo, and that was his first pump as a team sergeant. And he was great. I love the guy. And he had called me. He goes, "Hey, do you want to move over to my team? I need an 18 Delta." But besides me and him, and actually this 18 Bravo is now a medical doctor. So you don't see that every day. But besides him and myself, there was such a broad array of life experience because like you said everyone's civilian job is different whereas in one of the 5 groups your job is to be a Green Beret and get better than you were yesterday at being a Green Beret. But we had no kidding like a no BS astrophysicist as our 18 Charlie. No, yeah, no, he was an Echo. Excuse me, he was an Echo, which does not predispose one for success as an 18 Echo because he sucked as an 18 Echo. But if you wanted to discuss astrophysics related things like accretion disks and black holes, man, he was your dude.
would love to have that guy on the show. Actually, I'd love to talk about that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was the pace plan for comms was your cell phone. Just don't even try anything else because he's not the master of his domain in that regard.
That's all right. That's all right.
No, no, it is. I mean, this day
You
and
just
age.
blame solar flares if the shit's not working. That's
That's
fine.
one thing I was telling someone. It's like as the 18 Delta, you're working on somebody, and if that person passes away, right? Like everyone comes up and pats you in the back and says, "Hey, Doc, you did your best." And if you're an 18 Echo, every time it doesn't work, they're like, "You suck. Give it up. Go sit in a corner. No food for you today." It's just the opposite side of the coin for those poor guys.
Yeah. If you, as an 18 Echo, don't have a best friend, and I'm talking ride or die best friend that is a 25 series, you're fucked.
Be helpful.
Man, shout out to my buddy Brandon Delaplane. He's down. He bailed our Echo out so many times in Korea. He'd just go in and he'd wave his wand over the box, and we got internet or we got red side. I was like, "What the fuck do you do?" He goes, "I just unplug it and plug it back in, man."
Like the IT crowd. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
God,
Always
he
the
would
first law.
when we were on staff. I think the same. Yeah, we were 3rd Battalion staff, and he was in 6th. And he would always come into S3 and he'd look at me and he'd give me the look. He's like, "I'm just going to unplug it and plug it back in, and he'd go over to the printer and he'd kind of look around and he'd plug it, do a hard reset. He goes, "I got it working." I'm like, "Wow, what a magic man." He comes in here and just wows the officers. Promote ahead of peers,
Yeah,
make
yeah.
that man
I
a
was going to take
sergeant.
at least an hour. 10 minutes later, it's done. He's a miracle worker.
Get that
There was
man another
you remember
AAM.
the, you remember the SDNs, the SDN lights, those
Yeah.
portables. So again, as an 18 Delta, my team sergeant comes in. He's like, "Hey, there's SDN course for like 2 weeks going on. You're going." And I was like, "We have 2 Echoes. Come again." He's like, "No, no, they're going too. You're going with them." Like, okay, this doesn't. Yeah, he's like, I've seen your GT score. I want you to go to the class too. And so for like the next deployment, I tried to work myself out of that job as quickly as possible. And our Echoes weren't
Yeah.
bad, but one of them was brand new. And so, as a team sergeant, you don't really know what you're getting. Right. Um, and 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So with the one guy there, if I don't know, S3X picks him up for something, or if he's at some school and a deployment comes in, what do you got? And but yeah, I divested myself of that as soon as I realized that they were halfway functional at the SDN. It's like, nope, there's enough penguins filling up this iceberg from the 18 Delta course. I don't need echo penguins up on this iceberg too, because they'll push each other off real quick.
My GT store got me stuck on staff when I first got to the military. When I got out of basic training, I walked in to the S1 at Battalion, 18th Field Artillery Regiment, and the sergeant major looked at me and looked at the guy next to me and looked at our sheets, and he goes, "Line unit, staff." And I went, "God damn it!" Like, and I sat at a desk. I mean, I became an SF guy quicker because of that. But this guy can handle, being on staff. And I'm like, well, fuck you, I'm out of here.
I almost got something like that pulled on me. I was going through, so first I was an officer in the Air Force, right? I was going through pilot school.
Okay.
And I was one of the only guys that didn't like flying. Got guys and gals. We had, there were a couple female pilots too. I use guys, gender ambiguous term, personnel, whatever. And it was just, after a while, push forward, houses get bigger, pull back, they get smaller, go upside down. I mean, like, that's it, right? And that's it. Not disparaging pilots. Doing that for 20 years was not my bag. And so, I'm about 6 months into pilot training, and I pop smoke, resign my commission, and I'm working operations management on the East Coast for a large company. And then my best friend got his leg blown off in Fallujah. My best friend from college, he was a Marine, and so I kind of had this come to Jesus moment, right, where I'm like, I can still do stuff. This was 2006, 2007, so kind of early in the conflict, and yeah, so I interviewed a SEAL, and I interviewed a SF guy, and pretty quickly, thought the SF thing was more challenging, mostly because of the academic side, right? Like, both of them looked very physically challenging, which that was awesome, but there was a lot more academia, really. I mean, the long language school, the 18 Delta course being a year long, um, all that challenge. But when I had to go through part of basic training, and the BC would come like once a week. He would come out to the range or wherever we were, and he's like, "Hey, where's that Irvin guy?" And he was like, "I'll direct commission you right now. Right now. You can sit in the shop for, I don't know, till you make O3." Because I had like 2 years of officer time, right? Um, he's like, "You'll pick up O3 in like a year, and then you can go, put your packet in for SF as an officer." And I was like, "I'm not interested in that," politely, right? I didn't wave the middle finger at him or anything, but every week. And it's like he knew, like, it's cold. They're really sucking now. I bet he would love a nice cozy office job for a little while. And he knew what he was doing. He was trying to sell it. But I wasn't biting at that point. I was 27. I wasn't a kid. I was pretty galvanized in the route I wanted to take. So I just stuck it out as an enlisted guy. Never looked back either. I am very happy I went this way because, there's a shelf life as an officer. That's one thing I always felt bad for SF officers is they get, maybe 3 years to like stay and play, right? And then after that, you're anchored to a desk, and maybe you get a little combat tourism on some deployment. You can helicopter out and high five the boys, tell them how jealous you are, and they won't believe you, and then you fly back, and that's it. So I definitely got offered the staff thing. Didn't bite on that, and then yeah, I just kept my enlistment.
Yeah. Yeah, the officer, I think, because we've got one captain, two captains. How much we got at battalion? I think it's 4 captains at battalion. And then we're supposed to have a captain on each team. At that time, it was 6 teams. So you got 18 captains plus an XO if you got it. So at the most, you got 7 captains plus 1 from battalion. So your chances of getting a company are just over 1 in 8, which is not great. And your team time is 18 months from 2010 to 2000, the end of the GWAT was 18 months. That's all you were getting. And you weren't getting any more. And then, but what always blew my mind was there'd be, and I wasn't in that long, but it's always like, we have a shortage of captains. And then, okay, now we have too many captains. Cause that was when I was coming through. They had too many, they graduated too many captains. And then a few years after that, when I was getting out, "Oh, we got half the companies run by warrants." I go, "What the fuck? What do you mean? Like, how do you guys fuck this up that bad?" It was the same thing with deltas with you guys. There's
Mhm.
never enough 18 deltas to go around. You guys,
Yeah,
they could
the
split you
delta
guys
rate
in
actually
half and it still
it
wouldn't. Yeah.
was like 4 out of 5. Like, they were only keeping barely 80%, uh, into the next enlistment. And, so to have 1 on the team was very normal. To have 2 was crazy. And it was just, 1 of you was probably on borrowed time if there were 2 deltas on a team because, they always needed 1 somewhere else. Um, yeah, Manning.
Why'd you go delta? It's just more attractive,
Dude, I was
challenging
afraid of
wise?
blood. Like, it would make me queasy, and I didn't really like it, and it wasn't like I wasn't afraid of needles. I could get, the line vaccinations at MAPS and stuff like that didn't bother me, but, yeah, and I wanted to overcome that fear, right? And then, again, like, it's no little thing. My best friend got his leg blown off, and he was pinning the Humvee. When they yanked him out, they had to break his other leg, during the firefight to pop him out of there, and so part of it was, like, not in some, like fantasy land, like I wish I was there, but it was like, man, if that ever happens to someone I'm with, I want to know what I'm doing, right? And I want to be able to step into that role and succeed. Because I knew I was like, that's pretty smart. I just had to learn, the medical, get through the 18 Delta course, learn the medical pieces there, the treatment pieces. And one good thing I'll say about the 18 Delta course, and again, for anyone listening at home or in the car or whatever, the 18 Delta Schoolhouse does a really good job of telling you why things are happening. And so they've made this departure to get away from being what's called an algorithmic medic, where you're just going, if this, then that, and if this, then that, which that's assuming a couple things. That's assuming that you know everything that's going on there, right? That you have this clairvoyant understanding of the situation in the fog of war, or even stateside in garrison. If a guy has a training accident, and very rarely does anyone understand everything that's going on at one time. Uh, but it also assumes too that that any compounding factors are either mitigated or will not affect the outcome of the treatments you're rendering. And so when they started shifting to teaching medics to understand why the patient's reacting this way, why his heart rate spikes when you do this, and or vice versa, or whatever, really, I think was a very positive step forward for 18 deltas. And what I tell, again, people listening, if they're interested in that, is it is top notch. Um, and a lot of it's due to, our predecessors, the 18 deltas in Vietnam, um, coming back, and they actually created the civilian position of PA, physician assistant, because they had these 18 deltas who were significantly overqualified to do just about anything in civilian medicine except be a doctor. And they couldn't just ominous dominus, you're a doctor, because they didn't go to 100 years of medical school or whatever. So I will say I was still, even in retrospect, really impressed with the professionalism of the 18 Delta pipeline. But that's why I did it, because I was afraid of blood. I wanted to overcome that fear. I want to be, prepared, if God ever, chose to put me in that situation to be able to act appropriately and hopefully save someone's life.
I should have done what you did there. Was afraid of needles. I'm no longer afraid of needles, but I bitched out. I went, yeah, 18 Charlie, construction, check, done, easy. Showed
I mean,
up.
short pipeline, that's for sure. You guys got out of the
I'd
gate
been
right.
working I'd been working construction since I was a child. When I showed up, first day, all my buddies dimed me out. They made me class leader, and I didn't have to sweat. From the day the Charlie course started, I wasn't worried. The only time I was worried was when that time fuse was burning. The rest, I had no worries about being dropped or failing a test or anything. Not a single day after the start of the Charlie course was I worried.
So from your background coming out of that profession, basically, what was your take of the Charlie Schoolhouse? There you
What
go. That's all I needed.
the construction portion?
Yeah. I mean, because obviously
I
it's
would
sort of, they only get a few months, right? And it's limited scope, and you're also doing all the demo. So what
yeah,
does that look like?
I would say that the 12-week or however long portion, the special operation construction, would put a green guy on a job site at just under a year of experience on a normal job site. Because and even to that, it was so spread out. Because when you're on a job site, You got a foundation and you're framing the house. And I mean, in a couple houses, you know what you're doing. So we only did it once, and then we went to other things and you're doing just a little bit. So for what it did is expose you to other things. 'Cause you're supposed to be smart as well. And you're supposed to be able to like, I've done this before. I kind of know what I'm doing. I've got these books and I can draw on that. But overall, I mean, it's it's also you're a student. You gotta pass what they tell you. So you're learning the answers to the test as well. The same with calc and place and everything right there. All that stuff, that explosives and formulas and everything. Not only did I never use it, it's all gone because I found my notes, my note cards, and I started flipping through them. And I said, I don't remember making or memorizing a single one of these things. It's all gone. Not a single one of them.
So two questions. But you guys also in that short time span, you're covering electrical, plumbing, and not just framing and loads and things like that, right?
Yeah, the electrical was but you're learning like a switch loop, and you're looking like a three-way switch, um, and real basic stuff. So you're coming out of the panel, um, and I mean nothing from the street. So you would work. I think we worked from an established panel, wiring up outlets and switches and lights, and then switches. Three-way switch, and I think that's the most complex thing we did was single pole switches and three-way switches and things like that. So plumbing, not too much, basics, really basic stuff there. And then there's your chimney stuff. And I don't even know what portion that's all gone too. So if that is, I feel like there's some of the Charlie courses is there's a chance to never, especially the way I went. If you don't have that stuff and you keep using it, it's going to go away fast, just like your language is. The echo stuff, you are constantly getting a new piece of thing that clicks and beeps and bops and has a screen, especially as the GWAT went on. Contracts, they're just buying everything that it was electronic and throwing it at the teams and saying, you guys are going to be proficient in this. And then in 2 years, it was outdated and it was stuck on the Charlie's inventory. And I go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Can I turn this
That's
in? Nope. You guys are married to
nope.
it.
Nope, you can't turn it in. We've got 15 more year contract on this thing. Well, it doesn't fucking work. The Bravos, easy weapons,
Why
got to
does
be
the
proficient.
selfie kit consist of a Polaroid? Well, it's a 20-year contract with Polaroid. That's the best they had at the time. Stick with it.
Those are great kits, though. I mean, you learn how to that's a great skill. I wish I had now,
It
just
is.
taking pictures and things like that. So there's a lot of transferable skills in the things. Charlie, there's better. I was born to be an 18 Charlie. If there was anybody that fits the mold, and I firmly believe that was the best way for me to get my beret. I probably should have taken Delta, but I I really enjoyed my time. So, but the only thing I ever got to do was inventories. I never did anything other than inventories as a Charlie on a team or on staff.
I pranked our Charlie one time. Because we had those cages like in the, I don't know how team rooms were set up there, but fifth group, they built these new buildings, put them right in the middle of base for some reason, which no one liked.
I can tell you why. I can tell you why they're in the middle of base. Okay, so in 1987 or 5, when fifth group is leaving Fort Bragg, they had a deal, not a on paper deal, but they had a deal with the CG at Fort Campbell that they were going to be on the northwest end of base and out and have their own compound out and everything be segregated. And as fifth group started moving out there, the CG reneged and said, put them right there, right in the middle of the 101st. I want them, the big shiny thing, fifth group, right in the middle of my post. And that's why fifth group is where they are.
Well, those buildings, I mean, when I got there, that we used those buildings for like another year, maybe. No, it was like 6 months, and then moved into the brand new buildings, which were windowless.
Yeah.
So that was great. They were supposed to have showers in the team room, like one shower in each team room. They changed that. Also brilliant. But we had the cages on the ground level
Yeah.
and like near with the loading dock. And when you're in garrison and stuff hasn't happened for a couple weeks, you start to get a little antsy. And I remember I closed the door. Our Charlie was in his Charlie cage doing Charlie stuff, and I just closed the door and flipped the lock on it. And he didn't care. Like it was almost like a blessing for him because I came down like an hour later and he was just in his chair with his feet up, reading a magazine or whatever. But finally, no one could bug him about anything else because the Delta locked him in his cage. He's like, oh, I can't control it. Someone locked me in my cage.
I don't know. I don't know, boss. I don't know. Fucking the door was
And,
closed. I
and there's
I
no
had
cell phone
inventories
signal
to
down there
do.
either.
No, no. That's that's the excuse. Charlie's always. I got inventories. The Deltas. Oh, I got to clean the lock. I got to repack the aid bags, and I got to clean the locker up because somehow everything's always shit up. Echoes. I don't know, and Bravos. Weapons. I got weapons to do, weapons to clean, and inventories and things like that. So there's always an excuse, but no, it's fun though. It's really hard to describe too because I was messaging somebody last night who got to fifth in 2000, and I go, what a difference, getting there in 2000 where things are pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get a trip, maybe you'll have rounds to shoot at the range this year, to them giving you the black Amex, sending you down to Cabela's down there and saying, get whatever the fuck you need. We're going next week. What a change in up tempo. And that's hard to describe to people, those years, especially even if it's slow at group, it's very hard to describe to people because they weren't there with you. You go, you're in the military. Oh, everybody was in the military. Oh, you deployed. Well, all deployments aren't the same. The guys at Restrepo, that holy fucking actually at war compared to the people at Kandahar, right? Like those same time frame. So there's no comparing anything like that. You just gotta kind of have take the time to have a conversation and go, what's going on here? Because as well I do, people suffer in different ways from their experiences and the things that they've seen and deal with things. And I don't really judge anybody anymore or anything. I try not to because I just go, I have no idea what these people are going through or what they've seen, and who am I to
Yeah. And
judge?
it's, when I was coming up, so to speak, as an SF guy, or even just in the military in general, you know, you see some of these older guys, they got some war stories, cool, cool. Some of the new guys are coming back from their first trip and maybe they got a war story. But once you realize you don't really like pick your war story, right? It just happens to you. And like my buddy, the one I mentioned before, who lost his leg, he referred to his Purple Heart as a Iraqi marksmanship medal. And again, it's like if they're shooting at you and they hit you, I mean, it's not like, if you run out in a line of fire to rescue someone, all right, there's a story with that Purple Heart. If you're, and I'm not diminishing anyone's Purple Heart, let's make that real clear, right? You got shot, you got fragged, cool, you bled for our country. But the guy who's asleep in his hooch, and a mortar round hits 50 yards away and he catches some shrapnel in his arm, goes, gets it cleaned out and gets it stitched up. Yeah, technically it's Purple Heart. Different than a dude that runs into the burning, Humvee and pulls two guys out and gets one arm torched, but neither one of those guys really pick, they don't pick, oh, I really hope to get IED today because, I want some combat action. I remember guys going out and wanting combat action, but you don't really get to choose it very often.
No. I was messaging with the guy last night, and he sent me a picture, and I'm looking at it. I was like, "Is that a silver star?" And he goes, "Yeah, I had a bad day." I was like, "That's what every single one of you guys says when I say that you got a silver star." Everybody goes, "Yeah, I had a bad day." And one buddy of mine who's got one, he says, yeah, he had one, so he can say this. He goes, almost every silver star is a failure to plan for contingencies. And I go, oh, okay. He goes, why is that? He goes, because we don't take these benign situations seriously, and then we go out there, we're not ready, and then shit falls apart. And what do? We fucking make shit happen, and we save the day. And all of a sudden, they're giving you a star and things like. And I was like, well, you've got one. You can say that. I can't say shit. I never even got to deploy. So everybody's got perspective.
Yeah, those perspectives, I think those are unique to the people who served, right? Civilians don't, obviously, most civilians don't know what a silver star is, let alone some of the nuance with Bronze Star, Silver Star, DSCs, whatever. And also, like, I look at it and it just seems a lot easier, not saying with Silver Stars, right? But it seems a lot easier to get medals nowadays than it was like in Vietnam. It seemed like in the Vietnam era. My dad was a Marine in Vietnam. Obviously, talked to a lot of these MACV SOG guys. Like any given Tuesday for a MACV SOG guy was probably a Silver Star day, right? Like the stuff those guys did was nuts. And most of it didn't get recognized. I mean, it got logged, but it was like, oh, okay, that's typical. Like, faced enemy force, 150 to 12. Called airstrikes in for 2 days, got extracted, came back, ate chow, went back out again the next day.
When men were men, right? And, you just go there was, I was at SEER in 2000 end of 2013, and we're in a van. I think we were going to get rid of some offal or something like that, right? Some remains, and, the driver we're sitting in the back, and he's telling a story. He's like, "My buddy just died, and I had to put together his uniform." He's just telling us an old Vietnam guy story, and we're just hungry and cold, but I was, like, really tuned into what this guy was saying, and, he's like, I had to put his uniform together, and he had every Vietnam campaign ribbon except one, and he only knew this about his Bronze Stars. He said he would only ever wear his Bronze Stars with a V, and he had a Bronze Star from every campaign that he went to Vietnam on, and he would only wear the 8. God, I don't wanna say this wrong, but I think he said 8 Bronze Stars for valor. He would only wear those out of his 17 or something like that, and I went, "That's actually insane. That's actually
That's
crazy."
incredible, man. And some of those OGs, those guys were something else. There's a guy. Well, that's one of the neat things about doing the VA rating stuff that I do. We started the company like 5 years ago.
What's the name of your company? You gotta plug it now.
Yep, Veritas Ratings. Hopefully, throw some up in the chat whenever this goes up, or
Yeah.
tag it, whatever. But yeah, 5 years ago, I was talking to. I done some stuff for Fox, like put some articles up, and some people saw it or whatever. And there are these VA claims companies, and the CEO of one of the larger ones, we got connected, and he's like, "Hey, I need a chief marketing officer," and I just finished graduate school too, so I was kind of a safe hire. Like, oh, he went to grad school, but he was also an SF guy, so you know, I don't know, probably briefed well. And I'm talking to him about their business, learning about their business. And to help with my rating, I went through a company. I'd say the process was sketchy at best, right? Like you can catch what I'm throwing there. But like my injuries were legit, right? Like it weren't making anything up. Just the process seemed a little askew. And I eventually, after like 4 years, got my 100%, right? And so I'm asking this person, in the special operations community, we usually downplay or straight up lie about our injuries and our symptoms so we can stay on the field. And what do you do for there's 80,000 special operations veterans? If they don't have 100%, they're probably underrated, right? So what do you guys do as a business? What do you do for the special operations community? And I give him credit. He was totally honest. He goes, nothing really. And it wasn't his background, right? He probably didn't even, I mean, he knew special operations existed, but he had little, if any, exposure to it, right? And so I was talking with a buddy of mine here in Franklin, Tennessee, and he said, "Well, maybe that's a market segment, we should go after." And I thought VA claims seemed a little ambulance chasey, right? Like, one of those injury lawyers that, I didn't want to get into it. Definitely wasn't sexy, right? And it really just came down to there are a lot of good guys and gals who served our country who are unrated or underrated because of the antiquated VA system, but also because they don't have records. And that sort of leaves them in this spot. And they're told a lot of times, well, you can't file if you don't have any records, or it's just going to be too hard. Or sometimes the VA will even send them a decision letter, and the VA's decision is an error. Right. And so, as good soldiers or Marines or whoever, they look at the letter from the VA and say, well, they said no, I'll go kick rocks because I don't throw a fit. Follow orders. And eventually, my business partner got me to capitulate, and I said, okay, well, if you fund the startup cost for this business, I'll reach out to the guys that used to be on my A team and other guys I worked with, and Nick, I kid you not, we had this overwhelming response. It was basically, shut up and take my money. Like, just fix this for me. Some guys had never tried because they heard how hard it was. Other guys had beat their head against the wall. Um, and long story less long, we started getting wins for some of these folks. Our model is pretty simple, no upfront fee, and that's actually illegal. So if anyone's ever using a separate VA claims facilitator and they want upfront money, don't do it. Right. I would say stay away from law firms too, because law firms get a percentage of back pay. So if they can drag your back pay out for 3 years and take a percentage of it, they're going to do it. Having talked to people in the VA who are most of who we hire for our company. So people that used to work in the VA know the system, understand it, and have that expertise come in because in almost every instance, their words are, I actually want to help veterans. So I'm leaving the VA to come here. But there were actually law firms they'd recognize. And to see the same, lawyer's stamp signature on a claim, and it's, I know this guy knows how to put a claim in correctly. And he always puts the first one in incorrectly. So it just takes 6 more months. And so he's getting a percentage of that 6 months. And then he'll address one of the errors that he maybe deliberately made, but definitely knows better than to make that error.
No
And
way.
then he'll get kicked back again, and they keep going through this iterative process until it gets to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years. I mean, I've seen some on some of these Facebook groups, the guys like, well, my claim was really tough. It took them 7 years. It's like, it wasn't tough, dude. They wanted 20, 25, 30% of 7 years of back pay. And I'm not going to, you know, pee in someone's Cheerios over that. They got their 100%. So, regret, is a painful thing sometimes. And so I don't really mention it to them, but you do see these things. And so our model, we just take, if they win, only if they win, it's 5 times whatever the increase in their pay is. So if their VA compensation goes up $1,000 a month, it'll take 6 to 8 months for this to go through the VA. They'll get a back paycheck when they win of $6, $7, or $8,000, depending if it's 6, 7, or 8 months. And then our invoice is 5,000. So 5 months, right? And so for all these people, it's kind of found money. They just wind up, one morning, hey, I won. But I tell you, Nick, some of this stuff, two things. One, it's hugely rewarding. Like, everyone it's a dopamine hit when you fix someone's life, and it's generational impact, right? Like, if you got a blue collar dude who's got a couple kids, he's doing 60,000 a year at his job, and he gets that tax free VA money. He goes from 60 to 110 now, 50,000 a year tax free, essentially. He's getting the benefits on schools. I mean, that is 2.4 million if he's 40 years old. Without cost of living increases, that's 2.4 million that person's going to recognize in their lifetime versus not. So
Yeah.
that in itself is profound. But then you get all the things that come with that, like the impact on the guy's wife and kids, or if it's a female, right, and her spouse and kids. Access to better schools, access to college. I went to college at Indiana because my dad was a disabled veteran from Vietnam, right? So I got tuition waived. Fantastic. I mean, dude, we were pretty far from the high side of the hog when I was a kid. So Christian probably wasn't going to college without that. And so that reward in this business is big, but also it's really neat to be able to talk to some of the Vietnam guys. I mean, we got a lot of Vietnam dudes that we help. And because we have such smart people and we built a lot of software around it, but pairing that software with these veterans out of the VA, we're able to meet the needs of the guys and gals, whether they're Vietnam or Korean War era, or all the way up to, once you separated service more recently. But listen to some of these guys' stories, and it's really cool because the Vietnam guys, it's like these guys like never had a bad day. Like, their bad day was like, you know, it kind of sucked. And I had one guy, I asked him, were you ever injured in Vietnam? I know it was a long time ago, but if there's anything there, there's presumptives, like if you have Agent Orange exposure and you have these symptoms, we can look at that. If you're an infantryman, there are certain things that were likely encountered in the line of duty in the conduct of your job. We can look at that. And he goes, well, nothing really, nothing really. He goes, well, there was one thing. I'm like, okay, thinking like he sprained his ankle one day, like on the beach playing football, in Da Nang or something. Well, I guess it'd be on the river, but anyways, and he goes, yeah, I was in a plane crash in Vietnam, and everyone in the plane died but me. And when I came to, like, we couldn't get out of the, or I couldn't get out of the plane. Everyone else was dead again. So I had to bust out the window And when I fell out, I landed on the wing, but I landed head first. And so I really hurt my neck and my shoulder was dislocated and I broke some ribs. He's like, "Do you think that's a claim?" I'm like,
No,
"Yeah,
no, I don't.
probably something there." And all, but the strange thing, like he didn't lead with that at all. It was like, I don't know if there's much there. Like you, first off, you're in a plane crash in Vietnam. You were shot down in combat, so might be a mental health claim there. I'm sure your first few flights on Continental or whatever airline was still functioning when you got back from Vietnam were a little, you know, hair raising, right? But also all this other stuff, and then the other side of the, I won't say other side of the coin, but our era, the GWAT era, we're much more cognizant. And obviously, the physical training stuff, inside the Army and the Navy and the Marine Corps has evolved to where it's more, you know, building world class athletes, right? They're, turning soldiers into better soldiers through a program that mimics a lot of what sports has taught us, about physical fitness and health and nutrition, things like that. So we're a little more cognizant of aches and pains, and that shouldn't really feel like that. But our Achilles heel is that we tolerate it, and we learn to mentally, that resiliency piece. We learn to work around it in our head, and so people will downplay things. Even when I got out, I try not to use other people's stories when talking about some of this VA stuff. But I'll tell you right now, I almost guarantee you experience this and you probably don't even realize it because you're Charlie. And I hope this isn't gross to anyone, but this is my Delta hat here. It's called post urination micturition. And it's when you take a leak, a few drops of urine come out, or a full on like dribble, like a second stream after you zip up, right? And what that is caused by, like if you're 80 years old, maybe that's a normal thing. It's not supposed to happen if you're 30, right? Or 40 or even 50. But what that is, they found, and it's common in women who have just given birth, right? And so there's a weakening of the bladder sphincter muscle, the muscle that closes off the bladder's connection to the urethra to urinate. That muscle's weakened, and for a few days after giving birth. And so women will wear the appropriate undergarment until they have recovered from the process. But in men, it's present, of course, if there's been a surgery, something in the genitourinary area, but also sustained shearing forces or blast waves. And so all the door breaches, all the shots, even the Carl G, those like, so the wave, when you shoot your M4 is like, right, but on a door charge, it's right.
Yeah,
So it's more sustained. It's kind of a deeper, and that's why you feel it through your chest, right? But that is proven to weaken the bladder sphincter muscle, and it does it permanently, usually. And so just about everyone I talk to, especially if they're an operator, I'll say, "Hey, do you deal with with these symptoms as I just described it?" And like 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, Nick, it's, yeah, I have to stuff some paper towel in the front of my pants. If I go in a meeting, I'm wearing khakis. Like I always have some paper towel down there because, khakis will show, moisture, water, things like that. Some guys, like, I just carry an extra change of underwear. Like if I go out with my family and we're going to go to like, the mall all day or going to Six Flags or something like that, I know it's probably best that I just have an extra pair because it's going to, if I use the bathroom a couple of times, it's going to start to get pretty damp down there. And that is potentially a 40% rating just by itself.
hmm,
And so the ignorance of things like that, but also the ability to tolerate it. Guys will say, no, there's nothing else wrong with me. We covered my back and my knees and my neck pain. We covered it all. And then you bring that up and they're like, yeah, that's actually a really, it sucks for my quality of life. It interrupts my activities of daily living, which is one of the VA's criteria, the impact on activities of daily living. And, they've just learned to tolerate it. And the VA came out recently with some additional guidance and very clearly said the ailments and the symptoms that veterans deal with, if they're remedied by medication, must still be essentially rated as if the medication weren't involved. Right. So if you got
yeah.
debilitating back pain, but you're on perks and you can kind of move again, you can go to the gym. No, that does not mean that you don't have back pain. That just means you have to tolerate it and treat it. But you should still be rated for your worst day of back pain. I've gone on for a little while now. Sorry,
No, you're
soapbox.
you're good. So we, our generation, and people could tell me I'm fucking wrong or whatever. Right? We are not tough. We are not as tough as we think we are. We were raised with everything we needed to be successful, and as you go further back in time, that is less so. So, people were just tougher. It doesn't mean they were stronger or they were more resilient. They just were raised by harder men than we are, and you go back to the point where people actually suffered in the Great Depression and actually suffered in the Civil War and those times, right? Like, fucking living on the frontier and shit, having to scrounge for your food, like actual suffering. And we've gone into comfort as we come into the modern era. So there's been this lessening of a need to survive, and we have just become, I don't want to say weaker, but we just haven't had to be as tough. So what does that mean? Well, those people behind us that raised us, they just put up with it. So what am I going to do? It's gonna affect me, but I'm just gonna, you know, keep it. I'm gonna make myself tough, and I'm just gonna keep it the same as them. Where for them, it's normal everyday life. Like, oh yeah, I fucking crashed in the helicopter, but well, were you injured? Yeah, I lost an arm. And that was a conversation I had with a Medal of Honor recipient. He's like, yeah, I lost my arm. And I'm like, oh, you got any other stories? He's like, I met up with Roger Donlin at the fucking Medal of Honor get together, and he's like, that guy was a cool dude. And I'm like, weren't we just talking about you losing your arm? He's like, ah, fuck that shit. He's like, he was so cool. He'd be like, I was like, Roger, what do you like to do? And he's like, drink bourbon and kill people. And he's like, 2 bourbons. And I'm like, that's how the conversation went, just tough guys that had a tough life. That, as one guy that came on my show pointed out, his generation was raised by men that didn't love them and didn't care about them and would treat them the way their fathers treated them. And our generation, my generation, and moving forward, has known nothing but love moving forward. And that affects how people are and their temperament, and if they have that will to overcome things or they had a rough childhood, they will prove themselves. And there's some psychology in there. And there's a reason we select people that have had fucked up childhoods, because they've got all those traits of having to survive, and they are tough and they will figure it out. And that's why you have a huge group of Green Berets that have had really fucking rough childhoods. And that war doesn't make that any better. And what will we do when it comes to rating? We'll say, other people deserve it. I'm not saying I had a fucked up childhood. Mom, dad, I had a great childhood. We will ignore our things to make ourselves, because we diminish we're all imposters in our situation, right? We don't belong where we need to be. We're not worthy of our accomplishments, so we downplay it. Somebody else needs that more than I do. Well, guys, it's the fucking government. Fuck them. They put you in this situation. Get your money. You know what, my wife? Don't tell anybody. I told my wife, if I unexpectedly pass away, you're to take all of the cow out of the freezer in the basement here, put me in the fucking freezer until the
And just keep
government
collecting that
figures
money.
out that I'm fucking dead. And that she's like, well, what's the plan when they figure it out? I said, leave the fucking country with all of your money. Like, fucking get the fuck out of here. Fuck them.
Yeah. Well, two things. One, figuratively, the allocation, budgetary allocation that Congress provides the VA to cover benefits is uncapped every year.
Yeah.
So the VA proposes a budget because they need something on paper. But and this wouldn't happen, right? Funding for the VA, almost $500 billion this year, right?
Love. I'm small sidebar. I'm old enough to remember when politicians didn't know what a fucking $1 trillion was. God damn it. Ugh,
Yeah.
couldn't continue.
And a very decent chunk of that is to cover benefits, compensation, pension, disability benefits, but it doesn't run out. And so if the VA were to get its act together and get through this backlog, rate veterans appropriately, and somehow go beyond their budgeted allocation for benefits, it would still be covered. There would be no issue. Wouldn't come to a vote in Congress, nothing like that. It's just automatically covered. So anyone that is saying that, you know, anything that sounds like the money could run out or that it's being taken from someone else, that's a complete lie. That just, you throw that out of your head. If you're listening to this, throw that out of your head right now. The other thing, last I checked, we never full on invaded a country that had a McDonald's, right? And check where I'm going with this. I don't know if you count Venezuela. I don't know if they have McDonald's. I wouldn't really count that as a, full on invasion, right?
It was just a a Rick and Morty quick adventure, in and out, 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, 20 minutes max. But that is a sign that if Western society's business interests proliferate, globally to a certain extent, that country that has felt the influence of those, Western corporate auspices, right? Whatever, is basically off the list, right? Like they're progressing toward Western values at a rate that it's probably a reciprocal thing, right? Like the closer they get toward first world, if you will, in terms of their economy, the farther they get from the possibility of military intervention. And so follow me here. The reason I think that some countries find that appealing is because they want to get farther away from the, potentially invaded list. And also they realize, hey, capitalism might not be that bad, right? Free market might not be that bad. We might have to make some deals here. There's going to be, a trade deficit or surplus here and there, but at least we're not on the US military's hit list, right? And so the sacrifice of US service members to make the US military what it is in the eyes of the rest of the world certainly is worth paying them appropriately on the disability side, because it has done so much to perpetuate US and our allies' economic interests globally. I don't think you could ever, I mean, you could eventually, but you're never going to pay it back through disability benefits. It's a good start, but at no point is the veteran going to be ripping off the taxpayer.
Then how do we get these Gold Star wives lifetime benefits then? How do we do that? Because Congress has really dropped the fucking ball on that one.
Yeah, I would probably lean into like the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. They seem to be doing some really good work in terms of taking care of veterans and their surviving spouses. And there was a guy from 20th Group that we helped pretty significantly through our company get the benefits he needed, and his spouse has spoken very highly of the Elizabeth Dole Foundation.
Okay. You're familiar that they can't remarry. Gold Star wives can't remarry or anything, or
Really?
they lose all their benefit. You never heard this?
No.
They can't remarry until like a 57 or something, or they lose all their benefits, and they can't oh, you need to look into this and
Wow.
more and go like that because
Pair of
I
handcuffs
had
right there.
I had Michelle Black on. She's Michael Black, Brian, oh, fuck. Staff Sergeant Black's wife. He was killed in Niger in 2017. She laid it out for me. And I went, that's fucking terrible. And I called Amy Griffin, Jeremy's wife, and I said, is this how you guys are stuck with this? And they go, yeah, we can't remarry. Otherwise, we lose the surviving spouse benefits before a certain age. So, yeah, they'll take care of us while we're alive. But if you die in combat, your wife is married to a dead man for the next 3 decades. What if she's like
Someone made the point to me,
19, you know?
and they were like, the best thing the government ever did was praise veterans publicly and then create programs that don't actually help them, on the other end. I mean, like the VA could be a fantastic organization. Um, and it has good people, right? My impression is that they're using yesterday's technology tomorrow, right? So they're never going to get through this backlog. I mean, we had a former very high ranking member of the VA. I'm not going to say his position or this person's name,
Was he the janitor? No.
but yeah, he was head of custodial command at the VA. He came in and, we had a Zoom, and then he came in, flew in and visited our offices here, and we showed him, the extent of our AI functionality, which is pretty advanced. And his commentary was along the lines of, this is exactly what the VA needs. This could 100% solve the problems. He goes, the issue is the leadership still, and not the VA chief, right? Because those rotate in and out. They're appointed by the president. But some of the OGs in there, one, they don't have the technological capacity to
Prowess.
understand, yeah, the prowess, the exposure to understand the value proposition. Two, they might not change it even if they did. And if it's not their idea, there's no chance of them changing it. because that would mean that they weren't the perfect person to be in that role, right? And so it's basically, cutting off your nose to spite your face sort of thing. They're going to sit in their fiefdom or, their town. They're going to run it how they run it. And if anyone else has a good idea, you better convince them it was theirs. Right. And so we're either up against that, or I mean, we're happy to operate here just in the private sector, right? Like this is fine. We've got competitors. That's fine. There are so many unrated and underrated veterans. About 4 million right now of the veteran population is unrated or underrated. We have business, right? I think it would be fantastic if we could allow the VA to use our software. We hired a really, really senior guy, and he goes, "You guys have done in like 9 months what the VA's been trying to do for like 8 years, and you've done it, and they still haven't." Um, so the VA could be a fantastic thing, and like I said, it's the personnel, some fantastic personnel there who truly love veterans, who truly want to help on the VHA side, the healthcare side, and the VBA side, the benefit side, and they're completely separate, right? They're not two branches in the same tree; they're different trees. Right. But there are good folks there. And fortunately, we're here because someone gets so burned out, they're just ready to go and we hire them. And so they're able to do good things. Their biggest thing is they get to talk to veterans when they work here. So, the rater hardly ever gets to interact with the veteran. It's just not part of the process. But on our side, the case manager works with the veteran. They do long phone calls with them. They'll do Zooms with them. By the end of this engagement, they'll know, what their kid's sports schedule looks like. It's a very, concierge type of engagement. But yeah, there's definitely some room for improvement on the VA side.
The VA is excellent if you have nothing wrong with you or you're dying. And if you're in the middle, you're fucked. But that's the general person. Okay, so the VA is not going to improve, right? That means we don't have to think outside the box. It's a system that can be dominated. Jeff over at Task Force Dagger, that direction. He's like, oh, you can get all this free shit from them. There's all these programs. He's got it all figured out. You want an ice bath? You can get an ice bath. You want this fucking thing, some red light? You can get that too. I was like, you serious? And he's like, yeah, I got it all figured out. But it's a system. You can figure it out because it's not going to change. They're not going to change shit over there at the VA. So you got to figure it out and then you can help other people. But it takes somebody to go in there and go look at the piece of paper because that's why people can get the ratings. Or that my buddy put up one the other night. He's like, do you have no rating? A 10% rating? Well, let's get you to 100%. Records? We're just going to fucking lie. How are you not in the military? It was a parody of these companies
Yeah.
that are like, do you have a 10% rating? Well, let's get you to 100, and that's why people can, the claims of fraud come up is because the VA it's black and white. You can just fucking lie and get what you want. And that's what some people do. And I say, yeah,
It's
there's
pretty
people
difficult to
that
get
are,
a fraudulent claim past the VA. It's difficult enough to get a real claim past the VA.
yeah, right.
But they do. So like if you go to a private doctor and there are some hacks, right, who are just signing paperwork and, you know, sure, you had a catastrophic back injury. Looks like it was due to service. Okay, see you later. Give me my $800 or whatever. Uh, and the VA will find those people. They seem to be, I wouldn't say perfect, but decently proactive at checking the address of the doctor's office. And sometimes they'll pull one and it's a burned out building in abandoned part of Detroit. Clearly not a doctor's office. So then
You never
anything
know.
said by that doctor is shredded. And on the other
I
side too, you can get a medical opinion, but the VA can get their own medical opinion, and theirs counts more, even if it's
Yeah, there's kind of,
your MD and their nurse, right? Which is legally not supposed to be how it goes. There's a rank system with healthcare. So if you have an ear, nose, and throat guy, if you're going in for sleep apnea, you have a deviated septum from combatives, got punched in the face much times, septum's deviated, causes breathing issues, you're wearing a CPAP, you want to get that rating from the VA for that. You'll go to your sleep doc, right? If you're on a civilian side. And sleep doc, that's all sleep doc does. Sleep stuff, right? So he writes your letter, writes your nexus, says, yeah, this is more likely than not due to service. The dude was in combatives. Here's his certificate for doing McMap or whatever, and it's my opinion that this was more likely than not caused by service, the VA can look at it and say no, and then you're just sort of stuck. And there are ways around that, right? But the VA does, they do a decent job, I'd say, of trying to weed out the fraudulent ones. The real tough thing I think for veterans is navigating the space independently. And there is some AI out there, right? Like you can I think there's a few companies like advertise like use our AI. The issue with it is it's not entirely dialed into the VA's guidance on ratings. So the 38 CFR, 38 Codified Regulations for covers VA ratings and exactly what each rating should be for this amount of range of motion in the back or knees, flexion extension, things like that. And the M21 which delivers guidance to VA personnel on procedurals. And so there are some resources, but not a lot that are really dialed into those. And the other thing, Nick, is those things change every day. Every time the VA court makes a decision on something, that precedent is set to change that rating criteria or that decision, right? And so it's not like, hey, is this the 2026 version of the 38 CFR? No, is this the January 31st, 2026 version of the 38 CFR? And so being able to dial that in daily is really beneficial.
You can keep that. We'll talk about mine afterwards. There's some funny stuff in there and just, other things. But it's, as you said, it's got to be interesting hearing everybody's stories and of the things that they find serious and then the things they don't take serious. Like, I got a concussion every 6 months to a year, every interval from joining in 2011 up until this day in 2015, where I got three, right? And it was
And I assume
consistent.
you're talking like moderate TBI concussions.
I
Like
got
you're
knocked
well,
out in I got knocked out in basic. I got the hardest I've ever been hit in my life in combatives 1. It still hurts. That pain, that hit to my head still hurts. I'm fairly certain I got rocked in AIT, but I can't remember. I know something happened.
well, if you have amnesia, you probably got rocked.
I have all kinds of stuff. But and then when I got to my unit, I got hit. I got hit in selection on the down pilot. The thing racked and then fucking drove me into the ground. That one was like I came to and the thing was luckily still on me. The apparatus was still holding me down, and I like woke up and I'm like, "I'm okay. All right, back at it. We're good. Back. I'm not getting dropped."
Yeah.
And then selection. And then what was the other one? Selection. And then we got to the course. I can still hear the door charges from the Charlie course. That's when I got my tinnitus. And then the 3 out here on the ocean. The 2, I would have recovered from the first 2, but the third one is one that it like wrapped everything all up in a bow. And I just I didn't get out of bed for like 45 days, man. I was ill. I was so sick that when I got to my first appointment at the TBI clinic, I threw up 45 days after I got hurt
Oh,
at
wow.
that appointment. I threw up in the trash can, and the woman's like, "You're going to get medically retired for sure." And I went, "Oh, and I went home and I never came back. I did not go back to that clinic one time after that. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. I don't know. But I went back into the group compound and I hid it out. I was like, fucking, I'm never going back over there. They want to get rid of me. I want to stay in. So I just got here. So I did stay in. But there was no future for me after that. No sergeant major could ever send me back to a team. I could never jump out of a plane again. I couldn't do anything. So it was
It's
whatever.
funny. I had
Group took care of me.
yeah, they're even getting better about that. They're really dialed in with the TBI centers of excellence, the NICOs and stuff, intrepid centers.
I
I
went to
remember
I went to some program. I went to one and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And remember being so upset. I was like, "What the fuck do you mean you can't find anything wrong? I'm in pain. I got shooting pains in my brain." And the colonel, he said, with the technology we have now, some of this stuff we're only going to be able to see when you're dead. And I was like, well, that doesn't fucking help much. Thank you.
yeah, wow, attaboy, sir. Went to the VA's polytrauma clinic because when I left active duty in 2015, I contracted for a while overseas, but I was doing grad school. And dude, I was having trouble reading, right? So I'd come off
Yeah.
like 3 deployments pretty quickly, and I'd have to read the same paragraph like 3 and 4 times. And I had, I had my undergraduate degree. I'd finished that before I joined the military. And so I knew I could study. I did the Delta course. Like I knew I could read, but I'm going through this and I'm like, this is hard. And it was business. Like it wasn't med school. And business I think is a little easier than some of those other things. But so I should be picking this up. And so I realized something's wrong. 35 years old. I'm having trouble reading. Had my bell rung a few times and been close to some blasts and, gotten popped and stuff. But I go in and I'm talking to the lady and I'm describing my symptoms. I was having some issues, like formulating words, right? Enunciating properly. Obviously, some concentration issues, things like that. And then she goes, and after a couple visits, she goes, well, you could just be at that age. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're in your mid
Thanks,
30s,
lady. Thanks,
like
lady.
cognitive decline. And I was like, this is the best we have? Like, you're a doctor. Right? She wasn't a nurse. She was a neurologist, and she told me that not being able to read, remember, concentrate, or enunciate words was normal chronological for my age decline. And I was at that moment, I was like, I know why guys shoot themselves in the parking lot of the VA. Like, this is it. Now I had a couple kids. I was married, still married, right? So I was not going to take that route, but I was blown away. I was like,
Yeah.
if I was by myself, like a single dude trying to live life now out of the military, and that's the answer I got, I totally understand why dudes losing, right?
Yeah, everybody in command knew. Everybody knew. Everybody in a position of power knew when they started in 2005 when the suicide numbers like tripled and then they tripled again and then they tripled again or something like that, starting in 5 or 6, I think it was. Everybody knew what the cause was, and they're just like, we don't have to do anything. Like, okay, now we've got TBI. This is the main thing driving all this. We're putting people out here, and they're getting these MTB. Everybody knew, just like the NFL knew, and they're like, "There's nothing anybody can do to us. The VA will handle it later," and that's what they're going to deal with. And the VA doesn't have to handle it because they're not beholden to the military. I now you can discount what I say here or you can agree with me, but I'm fairly certain the United States military and the VA have never heard of one another. They don't know the other one exists, and they have no association whatsoever because they just don't have to. They just go, oh, I don't have the if it's not on me in front of a piece of paper, it doesn't exist. So I don't even know what you're
They're
talking about there.
starting they're starting to fix that a little bit, but I'd heard from Paul Lawrence, over at the VA, that what he wants is some sort of capability to instantly process the med records of people getting out now. And so they can go right into the VA. Because currently you carry a stack of papers. They're put in an IDES, and supposedly the VA can read those. Not always, right? And when I first heard this last fall, I was like, well, our software does it already for everyone that we encounter. Let alone we could easily do it there. Um, so they're keen to try to fix it, but again, you've got a lot of OGs doing old guy things at that level. So, you know, Paul Lawrence, as I think intelligent and ambitious as he is to try to get some of these fixes in there, is sort of up against, you know, a pretty big hurdle with some of the people inside the VA. Hopefully one day. But yeah, I'm, I was blown away when I got out and I was like, well, you're the government. Can't you just take these records from Fort Campbell and put them in the VA in Nashville? Like,
No,
no,
no, they can't.
can't be bothered
Doesn't
with that.
they're not in the same government. It's a different branch. It's a different tree, as you said. Seer, I got I'm fairly certain I got hit hard enough by one of the instructors because I had fucked up dreams for like 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, and I was like, felt like shit and had trouble sleeping and things. I thought it was from the seer, and then years later I remembered the fucking guy hit me as hard as he could right before we got liberated. He's a very nice guy. He's on Discovery Channel on Naked and Afraid every once in a while. Nice guy. Fuck that dude. But yeah, got one there. And it's and people are like, "Oh, we need the government to handle healthcare. I was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know if we do.
I've kind of seen
You
that
know.
movie.
Now, enough of VA bashing. The VA does do good things, like their walk-in mental health care, top notch. Every time I've gone there and needed it, somebody was there
They
to
do a really good
fucking
job
talk.
too, Nick, of handling MSTs, right? Any
What's
MST
that?
claims, military sexual trauma.
Okay.
They take that stuff very seriously. And every time I've seen someone process through that route, I think they do a pretty good job with that stuff.
Yeah, there are programs that are really run well. I like my doctors over there and things, but if you want to get seen today, just go to the emergency room. It's always empty. At least where I live, it's always empty and you'll get seen right away. But if you want to make an appointment with your doctor, that ain't gonna fucking happen. You're gonna be dead of the sniffles before you see them. It's just such a strange way to set up. If you want to get seen, you got to go to the emergency room, and it's counterintuitive because this is an emergency. Well, do you want the fucking cough medicine or not? Because
Yeah, I
then
went in for I had some skin cancer. It was a screen. They ended up being cancerous. They removed it, right? So I get the letter from the VA, I put it on the fridge, right? It's there, not forgetting it. I show up to my appointment 20 minutes early. I go in with the letter in hand, and it was a good thing I brought the letter. So I go in and I ask the receptionist, "Hey, like, where's this clinic here? Which floor, whatever." She goes, "Oh, that clinic's not in this building anymore." Like, "Oh, is it across the street?" She's like, "No, it's on the other side of town, the other side of Nashville." And I go, "Well, this is the address that on the like you guys sent me this." She's like, "Yeah, but it moved." It's like, did anyone think about sending another one with like an updated address or a phone call even? She's like, "Well, I don't know anything about that, sir." Okay, that's fine. Do you think I can get there in time? No, you're not going to make it in time. Like, all
Nashville's
right.
an
Well, what
hour
if I
from
call?
Nashville.
Do you
Yeah,
think I could, they could squeeze me in? She goes, "Well, no." Just like, if it's not your designated appointment time, no chance. Okay, all right. So I call. And I'm like, "Hey, this is me. This is what I got. This is what happened. I'm driving over right now." She's like, "Well, I don't think you're gonna make it here in time." I was like, "I don't either, but this is the letter you sent me. So I'm going where you told me, and now I'm audibly over to your new location." She's like, "Well, we're not gonna be able to see you." I'm like, "It's for a cancer screen. Okay, like, any chance? Like, okay, when could you see me?" This was October. When could you
six
see
to
me?
9 months. 6 to 9 months for sure.
Looks like we've got February 10th.
Oh,
I'm like,
four and a
February.
half.
So
Yep.
if this is cancer, you just want me to just keep chilling with
Die.
cancer? She goes, "Go to the ER." I have no idea why the system's not functioning at optimal level.
Hey, whatever. I stopped going to my one appointment because she's like, I want to see you every 3 months. And then I walked out to the receptionist and she said, I can get you in 7 months. And I said, there's no need. I'll be fine. I'll be good. I'm not driving up here for that because I'm most likely going to cancel anyway. I'll figure something out. So enough on the VA.
It's
Kids, if
fun
you need to
though.
get if you need to
Okay.
get if you need to get help, go to the emergency room. If it's not an emergency, go to the emergency room. If it is
I
an
think that's what
emergency,
we're
dial 911. And if you need help with your VA rating, contact Veritas Ratings at www.veritasratings.com. Use code Christian Irvine to save no percent on your rating
I'll tell them
determination letter.
Nicholas Allen sent you.
I love people. People are like, "Oh, you want me to do this?" Like, I got codes at Alpha Elite Performance and with Precision Wellness Group, and that's enough for me. Like everybody else I work with, I was like, hey, just tell the owner that I sent you. I just like people to know they heard from my show. I don't really need anything. I just want to help everybody else out and things and with stuff like that. But that's what this whole thing is. I want it to be supported by me so that I can help everybody else. And then eventually it gets big enough to where it supports itself. And then I don't have to I don't want to take advice or opinions or anything from anybody else except my doctor and me, and that's it. There's no businesses or I have to ask anybody with sponsors or anything. I want it to get to the point where it's got enough money coming in where it sustains itself and then it's all me. There's nobody else's anything that's interjected other than my doctor, which is how we got linked up. Old T-Boz, you know.
Yeah. Tay,
Oh, you guys call him Tay Tay. I said, tell one of the other guys call him ask T-Boz how's things going. They were in the course together though.
hey, and you had a guy on here, Ricky Soldini, right?
Ricky, yeah, third group. Yeah, Green Beret vet, I think he is now on
Ricky was a fifth
Instagram.
group
Yeah.
guy.
Fifth, is he fifth group? I thought he was third.
Yeah, and now he's in 3rd Battalion of 20th. Well, no, check it. He was in 2nd Battalion of 20th before he left.
Yeah, he's over at, he's helping Reforge X, I think, the special operations nonprofit as well now. And,
Maybe, but he's
yeah.
one of our guys. We helped him with his rating many moons ago, and then he came out and he's one of our best case managers. The guy is just so smart. Really studied. I mean, he didn't have a history in the VA, like working at the VA. And man, that guy, we hired a guy who was on the VA ratings board, um, a PhD was on the VA ratings board. So he was sort of auditing our process when he first came in, and he's like, "Dude, I think Ricky might know more about the VA than I do." And so I love Ricky, but yeah, he had mentioned you as well. So
No,
Taylor and
Ricky's
Ricky.
great. Taylor's great. That's the only official stance of lesser known operators is when it comes to your health and hormones, and not for fitness. You can ask me on that still, but when it comes to health and medical related questions, especially relating to hormones and peptides, talk to your doctor, because everybody else doesn't fucking know. And if they do, there's no recourse in them giving you advice because they don't have medical insurance because they're not a fucking doctor. So the official stance is talk to your
There's a theme
doctor.
here. It's called being a doctor.
It's called being, well, I tell, like, you could listen, kids, take whatever fucking supplements you want. Take everything, because my guys, when I was going through the course, they would go down to Steers, they would pay cash for some weird powder, and they did it normally. They didn't go online and give their information to a Chinese company with the credit card and all this other weird shit, and then they would send you something weird from China and you didn't know what was in it. No, they went down to the 6'7" bodybuilder down there on right outside the gate, and they gave him cash, and they got the weird shit that he would take to be so big. Do that. Take whatever you want. But if you want professional advice, call your doctor, because he has a vested interest in keeping you alive.
Yeah, it's
So
business. Doesn't work if you're dead.
that's true. That's true. Small business. Anyway, Precision Wellness Group for all your hormone and testosterone related needs. Use code LKO20 on your consultation paperwork to save 20%. But I digress. No, Taylor's great, man. 18 Delta got the state of Florida to pay for his degree. Now he's a doctor and he's the battalion surgeon for 320th. Awesome. Like, I love that
That's the
dude.
other thing. If you're a veteran, right, and you have federal student loans, when you hit 100%, you can get them all forgiven, uncapped. So go out, get that PhD or whatever you want to get, and then call in call in your cancellation, and you'll get it. I know a few. I know one guy who's I think at 180,000, forgiven.
Yeah. All right. Special operations nonprofits. You said you are working with Special Operations Association. So obviously that's special operations. That's different from Special Forces Association, but they often work together, right?
Right. So when I first encountered Special Operations Association, it was through a nonprofit called Operation Second Chance. I'd medevac my team sergeant in Afghanistan, and they had an event weekend for Green Berets who'd been wounded. And you could bring like 4 guests and do like some fishing and some shooting and this and that. So he called me. He's like, "Hey, man, you're the Delta that medevac me. You want to come down and do this thing?" It's like, "Yeah, sure. That'll be fun." But the speaker there was uh, Till, John Stryker Meyer. And, we listened to him talk about MACV-SOG stuff, and all he wanted to hear about was our stories from, the GWOT. And it was almost like this tug of war in reverse. Like, we didn't want to talk. We wanted to hear him talk. He didn't want to talk. He wanted to hear us talk. And he was just a fabulous guy. Still love him. Lives out here now where we are in Tennessee. But he said, he's like, "Hey guys, get involved in these organizations, right? And I'd encourage you to look at the Special Operations Association." And the reason is because when SF dudes who were in MACV-SOG were, coming back to the world, they couldn't get into the SFA because records had been redacted. And so they didn't really have the burden of proof to say I'm an SF guy. Now they all knew each other. So they started the Special Operations Association. And that was sort of like the safe place, I guess, for MACV-SOG dudes. And so he's like, hey, you can go that way, but in the SOA, you've got all of us who sort of started it. And then other special operations are welcome as well. And so for me, I thought that was a really neat, origin story. And so I'd always been a little partial to that. And then there are a couple other MACV sod guys that live down the road here. And I was with one of them one day, and his name's Nick. And these guys would be fantastic to have on here too. Like their stories just, but they're really fun. They're really fun guys, despite being just old as old can be. He goes, hey, every year, we have this reunion, and every year it looks more and more like a nursing home Christmas party. We really need some of you GWOT guys to get in here and fix this, mean age thing we got going on. And so I got in and started attending. But I really thought there was a big gap in the recruiting of guys, you know, age 30 to 50 or whatever. And so I volunteered to sort of do that, for 20th Special Forces Group, and just a lot of the operators that are sort of out there in the general pop in general, and try to build the ranks there because Vietnam guys are, dying quickly. They're dying like 400 a day,
Yeah.
right? So we're going to
Yeah.
run out of Vietnam guys pretty soon. And MACV SAW guys are even more scarce. And so the opportunity from a historical standpoint to pass on this tradition from that generation to this one, and then from us soon to the next generation of operators, is the window on that's closing, right? And so I volunteered to help kind of however I could, and recruitment seems to be somewhere where they need it. For anyone listening who's an operator, I was an operator, or in the guard now, or even active duty. It's just like $35 a year or something to be involved in that. They have a fantastic event in Vegas every October, and it's better than I thought it would be when I showed up. Right, all these guys are super accessible. They want to talk to people that aren't the same age as them, right? So it's really easy to go in there and intermingle and mix. And there's essentially no rank, right? Like you can be, pull out your driver's license. Hey, I'm the same rank as you, right? And you could be sitting with a couple stars, and then some guys who finished as an E7 and got busted down 10 times while they're in active duty, and just, did this thing with their rank the entire time. It's a really unique, fun environment to be a part of.
When's the reunion this year?
I think it's always around the second week of October. I don't think the dates are set yet. And they usually always do it at the Orleans Casino in Vegas, um, which is a smoking hotel, uh, which is not uncommon in Vegas, right? But uh, I'm not a big fan. I can deal with it, so I can stay there. But the wife and kids don't want to be in that, so drop them somewhere else. But they also a lot of times they have the mountain yards, like some of the mountain yard guys attend. There's some SAS dudes, Brit. I didn't see any Aussies there last time. But yeah, the whole shooting match. It's pretty cool.
We'll see. Got a big plan for October this year for my Squat-tober road trip if I can get the sponsorship that I need to make it happen. So I was opposite end of the country last year for that. Otherwise, I'd have been out there. But that never seems to work out. I do need to circle back with Wilkerson. No, I got a couple things I wanted to talk to him about, maybe about coming on the show as well, because I just want to help however I can. And for me, it's the network. I want to know everybody. I want to know what everybody's doing so that I can connect the right people with this niche problem, with this niche organization at the drop of a hat. And, as I said earlier, I'm becoming an amateur historian. Well, there's a lot of benefits to that. If you know who was with who in what class and these different things, and you can just quickly, I got my 18 Fox board, the S3X, super secret fucking, I got strings and all kinds of shit in my head over here. It's a beautiful mind, but it just helps people, and I can connect people that have similar things. So I'm all about it. I thought the show would be, one thing. I'm starting a podcast and I'm going to talk to people. I didn't know that I would get so much more out of it than everybody else does. This is a great benefit to my psyche and myself, and getting plugged back into the community and being able to help people just like that. It's making me, especially with the TBIs and stuff, right? It's making me smarter. I can think faster. I can recall information faster. I'm able to absorb more information just by talking and speaking and figuring out how to do all these 18 Echo bullshit that I have no idea how to do because I'm a Charlie. But I can build you a house from memory. That's super useful in the fucking
As long as it's a
pre.
square, right?
I can
That's the
build you.
essential Charlie skill set, right?
No, I can build you a hip roof. I can cut you a hip roof. Yeah, for sure. You give me a. I would need a piece of paper and pencil to go over some stuff in my head to
Do
refresh.
they
But yeah,
issue, like, carbon fiber stealth hammers to 18 Charlies? I never saw one, but I figure you guys probably got some pretty Gucci
I
tools,
don't have
right?
I don't have my bag down here. No, the shit they gave us was garbage. So I had my tool bag with my bags and my tools in it with my stiletto hammer and all my shit that I had when I was on the job site working. Everybody else had fucking garbage. But, you know, I was the class leader and I took care of my guys. And later on, when it was time to do patrols, they took care of me and we all graduated together. And it was a really nice, cool thing to have because when it was construction time, I was the number one student in the class. And then when it came to patrols, I'm field artillery. I don't know what the fuck we're doing. And everybody's like, we're going to do this. I was like, we're going to do this, you know? So I went back down to being a normal dude. And the other guys were like, well, this is how we do this. So that was the coolest part about the course is some days you're the best and some days you're just an average fucking smart dude walking around the woods with 100-pound pack on your back.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
cool too, as long as you're integrated with the team. And that's a very overlooked portion of being an SF guy, or at least getting through the course, is
That's a
your
really good
friends
point.
will get you through. Your friends could graduate for you.
That's what we try to kinda look for in the SFREs when we're evaluating candidates is, obvious stuff like don't be late and last, right? Like or light in the rucksack. But can you, cross function, through different obstacles and events to where, it might be your time to shine, right? And that's like we know that you can do that one thing, right? Like if you're built like an ox, maybe the down pilot is for you.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And if you're not, then you should probably shine at land nav, right? Like let's see you think. Maybe even helping out some of the other guys, like between iterations, like, you know, help them, plot their, just bounce stuff off of them, say, hey, do you notice this? Things like that. And we did that when I was on active duty at fifth group. We did EFMB, the expert field medical
Field
badge,
medical.
which I found out later is the highest attrition school in the Army with a 17% pass rate. So we had just gotten off deployment. We didn't have any schools coming up. And so at the time I was a senior medic, who we could do 2 hours just talking about the funny stuff that came out of his mouth. He's like, hey, let's go do this EFMB thing. And we took the group dentist. The group dentist wanted to do it too. And so, all right. And so every day, 1700, the classes end or whatever, you go into evaluations, that part of the week that the things ended at 1700. We're just in these, barracks trailers, right? And so we would, as 18 Deltas, we had the medical stuff down. You'd be pissed drunk and half dead and do the EFMB medical tasks, right? But to get in and try out for the EFMB, you could be, a dental tech, just anything in the medical field, right? And so for some of these young kids, this is their shot. Like if they get an EFMB, that's the next promotion, right? Like that's a big deal. And they're not going to ranger school, right? So again, in medical side, EFMB can't get much better than that. And so we would take these guys and gals out and do training, do like hip pocket training for hours every evening. Because that's what Green Berets do, right? You teach other people. And this was super easy because they spoke English. So, dream. And so we're going through stuff with them, until dark. And the ones that want to learn more, they can jump in with us. They feel like they got theirs. They can pop out. Someone else can jump in. And it turns out when this thing was all done, IG comes in and opens an investigation because the pass rate doubled. And they couldn't figure out why. They thought people were handing out answer keys. Like it was a big thing. And finally, like one of the senior cadre was like, well, there were these two Green Berets there. And that was it. We basically doubled the pass rate just by offering extra training to these folks. So that was an interesting experience too.
That's how you create ambassadors for special forces right there. People discount all of those interactions. I was on the B team when we went down to NTC and the commander told me, he goes, LMTV broke down out in the desert. Go get it. And I'm like, how the fuck am I gonna go do this? And I'm dressed like I am now, and I was like, well, fuck. I'm gonna go back to sleep and figure get up in another hour. And I did, and I got up and I went, all right, well, let's go fucking find some regular army guys and start wheeling and dealing. And that's what I did. I went out to the railhead and I started making a bigger and bigger circle. And finally I found a private. I was like, hey, private, where's your sergeant? And he's like, hey, sergeant, where's your squad leader? I was like, hey, staff sergeant, where's your commander? And he's like, he's over there. And I was like, I finally go over there. I was like, I promise you I'm in the military, but I really need that soldier, and that Hemet that's on the train right now. And he goes, what do you got? And I started explaining to him. I was like, I don't have any money and I don't have any coins, but if you help me out, I will take care of your soldiers tonight at Chow. And he's like, all right, done. And he gives me the Kemet and the two soldiers, and I sent them out to the thing, and they recovered it. And I went back, hung out in the air conditioning. And then the commander comes back. He's like, great job. And he's like, what did that cost? I was like, I need all of the M razors tonight. And he's like, yeah, do whatever the fuck you want. And so I grabbed 3 other SF guys. I said, we're going out to this 10-digit grid. And we just drove right up into the camp. I was like, where's first sergeant so and so? And I said, hey, give me all the soldiers that are in these two guys' unit and tell them come over here. And I was like, we're going to take care of them. We drove them out. And I said, all right, guys, you can't break them. Do whatever the fuck you want for the next 2 hours. And they fucking ripped around on the M razors out on the track and in the training area for like 2 hours. And I was like, do whatever the fuck you guys want. You're not going to break them.
Probably still telling stories about it too.
I think that, but that's a thing, right? It's like maybe some one of those guys went to selection because of that. Because I'm in a black t-shirt and camis, and I got a cool guy helmet on. Meanwhile, I'm the least tactical Green Beret in the Army because I can't even fucking I can't jump or can't do anything, and I've got shooting pains in my head, but I'm out here hanging out in the desert. I look cool. That's the first rule, kids. Always look cool. You can
The
you can
two
get out of a lot.
rules I
Yep.
tell my middle son every time I take him to like an SFRE, I let him do the obstacle course and stuff like that. But two rules while you're here: always know what's going on, and always look cool. Because if you don't know what's going on, you can fake it as long as you look cool. He still
Yeah.
knows them too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's no, it's an interesting thing. I want the home team to win. I told the lieutenant colonel over the weekend, I was like, I want the home team to win. I think special forces is great. Have we always been the best? Probably not. Has this pipeline always been the best? Probably not. But I think that I can tell people and raise the image because we didn't. Maybe a couple people have brought down the image, but I think it's a great place to be and to teach you and give you a lot of different things. And we need people spreading positivity. So I just want to help. I want to help the home team win because we're way, way in last place. National Guard SF is in second to last, right above active duty active duty SF. SEALs, MARSOC, Rangers, everybody's winning the recruiting war and the social media war right now. And we are last to market. And I want to try and counteract some of that by meeting everybody that I can, going to every SFRE that I can and helping make content and convincing guys that you're probably not too old to go. Like 35 is just fine.
Man, if I had to shout out to one demographic, it would be the United States Marine Corps. Like those guys seem to make the best candidates that we see come in because they're tactically sound. The ones that show up to do this stuff have endless amounts of motivation. And it's sort of like, what's a special forces soldier? It's a good soldier that hates the army, right? I think it's kind of like that with the Marine Corps. Like their worst day in special forces assessment selection is pretty close to their best day in the Marine Corps, right? And so they've got a perspective that really lends itself and predisposes those folks for success in Army Special Forces. And of course, it's between here and here. Like I can get you to run faster, I can train you to do more pull-ups, right? But I can't really get in there and fix that. And so as long as they're 90-95% there in the brain space, and they can think, they can react and then think, then we're good. And the Marines we get are usually pretty successful.
Good. The Marines, they as I said, the marketing, Marines have the best. They've been at it the longest, billboards and dudes made out of lava being taken out with
Yeah,
swords and stuff,
fighting a
and
dragon with a giant NCO sword or whatever, like, that's
fighting the dragon and all kinds of shit, and I almost got pulled in, when I was a teenager, and then I couldn't join because I had tattoos when I was 22, I guess, or in
I didn't pass my
2000.
hearing test.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, which I
I
thought
failed
was
the colorblind test. I failed the dot test. I got a 2 out of 6.
really.
Yeah.
I had a buddy who failed it, and he's going through I think it was for his airborne physical, I think, and he was on an X-ray contract, and it was in, like, a trailer behind the hospital because they were doing renovations, and he, like, goes up and there's some E4 running the test, he's like, "I'm not gonna pass this." He's like, "Well, do you want to be here?" He's like, "Yeah, I really do." He's like, "All right, I'm gonna leave the room for a second," and left him there with the book, and so he starts going in the back and memorizing, that those 10 pages or whatever it was, and the guy comes back and, he gave the correct answer, but, like, and he ended up being an echo. Like, his team was telling me one time, I think they were in Jordan or something, and they're like, "Hey, this is so and so. Can you send another guy down here? I'm hooking up comms." And they're like, "It's comms. Like, you're an echo. How hard is it?" That sort of thing. He's like, "I'll tell you what, it's pretty hard when every wire I see is brown. Now, can you send
Ooh,
someone down here who can see green and red?"
ooh. Here's a interesting one, right? What is it acceptable to cheat on and still graduate, and what is it acceptable to not, right? So, I didn't I got a waiver because of my colorblindness. I'm not red green deficient, but I can't pass the test. But I got a waiver to go. I took a roundabout way, so I couldn't be an 18 X-ray, but I had to go field artillery and then come in the regular army, which is so much easier than being an 18 X-ray for everybody. Just go to the regular army and get super lucky on your path, and you'll be fine. But like, there's some stuff where it's like, oh, that's acceptable to get to the position, like lying on about your age in World War II. That's okay. But, fucking cheating on land nav, unacceptable, the answers to burying stuff in the woods, unacceptable. Like, there's a line there of what is okay to
Yeah, I mean,
graduate and what is okay to not graduate.
we definitely do enough land nav trading where no one should be cheating off anyone, right? Like,
Right.
we, and I get colorblindness. Like, you didn't make yourself colorblind, right? Like, it's not like you could have studied more and not been colorblind, So I mean, some of that stuff is, you're getting around this. You're finding a way around a disqualifier that you had no influence on at all. I did know one guy. He was in special operations, wasn't an SF guy, but we were co-located, and he was a really funny guy. Like, you're just out to dinner with him, like, just funny stuff comes out of his mouth like it's a bodily function. But he had a really interesting story. Of course, he went to SFAS first, got rolled out of that, and then they sent him to, because he was a 68 whiskey originally. They sent him to, like, I can't remember what the name of the clinic, right by the Delta Schoolhouse at Bragg there. Anyways, so he's doing medic stuff in the clinic, like helping the PAs out, and there were a couple other guys in there too. And he got word he was going to go to the word. He had to get ready to go, this and that. And, yeah, he was not excited. And so someone comes in to the clinic and is like, "Hey, all of you guys who are out of training, who are going to 173rd, let's go." And he just didn't step forward and just stayed there. And so he's like, "Oh, I guess I got everybody." So complete administrative oversight. So he's still like lining up in formation for the ATOT people in front of the JFK schoolhouse, on mornings, and I can't remember specifically how he did it. He ended up going the civil affairs route. Um, but they were like, "Hey, if you're in this formation and you're not currently in language school, come up to Master Sergeant so and so's office, before lunch today." And so he procrastinates and he gets up there like right before lunch. Well, no one's in there. And technically he's out of training, remember. So he's got to like register for a language, right? Because they think he's awaiting training. So he looks, the computer's up, it's not locked, spreadsheets up there, guy's gone. He's got nothing to lose, right? So he just gets in front of the computer, gets on a spreadsheet, puts his name in to like Spanish or something that he thought would be easy. And now he's in training because they lost track of him. They thought he went to the 173rd, but they actually hadn't moved any of his paperwork, right? He gets himself in a language school, does that. And then there was another incident like that where he basically like chose his own adventure, just of his own initiative and volition. Instead of saying, yep, I'll go to the 173rd, just engineered himself a way in and was successful, had a successful career in civil affairs.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
Just on the stones alone.
But
I'll allow it.
that's not fucking over the standards or anything there. That's
Correct.
beating the system. That's beating the
Yeah, he's not
system.
cheating on a test. He's just,
Yeah. So
wasn't going to take no.
I
Might
mean,
be
I'll allow it. It's
might be
approved.
something for you in the guard. Just get in there, get on a spreadsheet somewhere, put your name in.
No, you gotta have, then I get banned. Then I get banned from something that's even worse. So I got to
Or
keep
maybe
everything
they'd be
above
so
board.
embarrassed and they just let it slide. Just swear you to secrecy.
I just start coming. I just put my slick team guy uniform on, and I just act like I'm part of the team for drill. Actually,
There was another kid in the barracks, the 2419. I think that was the number of the was that was one of the barracks. I don't know if it's still they rotate those things and they condemn them once in a while, so it might not even be standing anymore. But he got promoted. He was in the ATOT so long, he got promoted, and he was just like showing up to one formation a week, eating chow, just living his life. Like, again, did his time in grade, and finally someone found him, and he'd been there for like 2 years,
yeah.
not doing anything, just occupying. Every time they did room inspection, he'd clean his room, but then he was gone. And they're like, "Oh, who's here? Specialist so and so. Where is he? He's a shitbag. Okay, well, yes, sir, he is. All right, let's check the next room." And so he like skirted out of everything, skirted out of every work detail, but yeah, hung out and got paid for like 2 years.
Now, see, that's a different thing. If you have no aspirations of graduating or actually going, like the ultimate shitbaggery is to just be this leech on the
Yeah,
system and
like
like,
working welfare
what is
program.
this dude? Yeah, and the military's ripe for the picking. That's like the bell curve, right? There's going to be somebody on the left and there's going to be somebody on the right, and almost all the people are going to be in the middle. So I don't think I couldn't do that. I can barely sit still now. Like I got to be doing something. So I couldn't do that, but whatever. As long as you're not hurting the elderly or defrauding, what is it? What do I say? As long as you're not defrauding the elderly, hurting women, or hurting children in that order, because sometimes kids are dicks, and and hurting animals, right? Kids are last because sometimes kids are dicks, but then I don't really care what you're doing. There's so much to be angry about. There's so many things that other people determine that I need to be angry about, and I'm just not gonna be. I have enough people that I have to try hopefully help with the stuff that I make in a positive way, that I'm not going to be pissed off about everything else. I'm not going to fight with you in the comments. I'm not going to fucking make negative content about people. I will make fun of people. I'll make fun of systems and the way things will go, but I'm not going to rag on people unless it's my old team sergeant. Fuck that dude. Ruined my life. But other than him, I just want everybody to succeed. That's how I want to moving forward. And working with special operations nonprofits and helping out things. And as I said, I want the home team to win. Sounds like you do
Probably good
too.
for your life expectancy too. Like, stay out of that extreme emotion threshold where your blood pressure spikes and wind up with all that arterial stress and damage and things like that.
No, man, I'm going out early. I'm 5'11", 241 pounds, all muscle. I'm going out early.
Well,
Fucking
it's something to shoot
send it.
for at least.
Yeah.
Everyone's
No,
got to have
I
a
meant
plan.
my blood work's great. My doctor said, I can't believe it, but your blood work is perfect. She's used the word perfect, and I'm going to stick with that.
It's very Trump of you there. I thought you were going to go, everybody agrees. My blood work is perfect.
Nope. One time, and I never went back. She said it was perfect, and I go back.
I mean, it can only go down from there, really. So just leave well enough alone.
Yep, once you're at the top, things go down. All right, man. I used to have a super sophisticated group of questions, and then I got away from those, and now it's just down to one question for wrapping up the show. So you've got Veritas Ratings, and you've got working on with special operations nonprofits, and then you do some consulting and anything. But that's your one thing, right? That's your mission moving forward. So what are you gonna do with your one thing moving forward to benefit our community and help the guys that need help?
Well, with Veritas Ratings, our signature blocks used to say enabling special operations veterans to achieve the life they've earned. And then some infantry guys found out and some Marines found out, and now it's spread around. But really, a lot of our focus is on a special operations community for this. And, some of our brothers are at that decision point. They're on the verge of making a decision that's going to be a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And so if we can reach them and enable them to avail themselves of VA mental health services, of course, some of the healthcare opportunities that come with a more accurate VA rating, that's fantastic. Every time I used to get tired at this job, is like God was sort of engineering something. I get a phone call from a dude who's in tears because he just finally got his VA rating straightened out. And some of these guys like, yeah, I was going to kill myself, right? Like if this didn't work, Christian, I was going to do it. And so that's pretty rewarding. And so I guess until that job's done, that's the job I'm doing, Nick.
Admirable, to say the least. I know exactly what those guys mean. Exactly. You have these setbacks, and, the last one to hold on to is, if I can just get my rating fixed, that'll take care of a lot of these problems. And we'll talk about mine afterwards. But I know exactly what that feels like for people. And, somebody said temporary or permanent solution to a temporary problem the other day. And I don't know why. I guess I was off in the fucking Pink Floyd land, just like thinking about the universe. And I started pondering that question because I've started analyzing the things we say a lot more as a result of the show. And it's not a temporary problem. It's reality. When you are suffering in your head with your mental state, that is a permanent problem. You are in hell and you will do anything to get out of that state. And and I start thinking about the decisions that we make, these permanent solutions. And when you are suffering, when you are actually suffering and you wake up for 1,000 days in a row and it's the worst day of your life, that's hell. That's the worst. I mean, I can't imagine anything like that. I've woken up for a lot of days in a row, but I was drinking and it made it kind of just go away. But after a while, you can't do that anymore. I'm sober now, 2 years sober almost. And
Congrats.
eventually that doesn't, thank you. Eventually that doesn't help anymore. And then there's nothing that makes you feel good anymore. So I, moving towards, I understand. I understand what you're going through because I've been there and there's a way we can make it better and we don't need to go this route. I can get you to the right people. If you want, we can get this. I understand. And, hopefully can move that forward. 'Cause, I said something the other day and my wife said, you know, I wrote this beautiful fucking caption and my wife's like, "You gotta take that part out, find your purpose." And I started thinking about it. I was like, "Yeah, the worst part about finding your purpose is other people telling you to find your purpose because you're so frustrated that you can't, and it makes you depressed and sad when people are telling you that, and you go, 'That's my problem is I can't find it. I don't fucking need you to tell me to find my purpose.'"
Yeah. In some of my dark spots or dark times, people giving advice is one of the more frustrating things.
Yeah.
And part of it's
It's
like,
very
"Oh,
easy for
really?
me to
Have
say.
have a different outlook? I never thought of that. Thank you." Like, no, no. Like most of us aren't idiots, right?
Yeah,
And so if a dude who's a former operator is going through that in life, they've tried to think their way out of it, right?
yeah,
And they've tried some lifestyle changes. And so I also work with Semper Grati Project, so always thankful. And there's a line of effort there that provides no cost mental health encounters, I guess, with a group out of Oklahoma of therapists, and they're almost all combat vets. So, different levels of licensure, some psychotherapists, some clinical counselors, but there it's a peer to peer type environment, right? You're not talking to someone the VA assigned to you and they're 29 years old and graduated from NYU 3 weeks ago and can't remember if World War II was when the towers fell or Pearl Harbor was bombed, right? You're not going to build a lot of rapport by sending that person to talk to a guy or gal who's really hurting with the experiences that some of us have had. And so being able to talk to someone who's also a veteran, and reacts more quickly, to answer the phone or get on a Zoom, has been really helpful for a lot of the folks we've worked with on that side. So, I mean, you got my number. So if you ever encounter someone and they're like, "Hey, I tried the VA. I don't like it. I hate it, but they're willing to give it one more shot," give me a call. We'll get them hooked up right away.
Yeah, man. How can everybody find you guys on the socials for all those organizations that you mentioned, including yours, if they so choose?
Yeah, so you shouted Veritas Ratings earlier, veritasratings.com. Pretty simple. Semper Grati project. I actually think I got the shirt on here. See what we got here.
Underneath the Veritas shirt, you have the
Yeah,
Semper Grati.
Semper Grati project.com.org. Both of them work. And shout out to another group, Authentically American. I don't know if you're familiar. Former rotary wing driver, West Point guy, Dean Wegner. He's here in the Nashville area. All of these clothes we source. He does nonprofits at cost, so he'll make their products, their swag items at cost, and then very very modest prices on anything else. But all sourced in America. The fabrics, the dyes, the sew shops, everything has to be sourced in America for them to make it. But I check them out, and I'm pretty sure that's just authenticallyamerican.com.
Ah, there's so many good things going on out there in so little time. But I'm going to do my best to get everybody on the show. I've said before, if I got to do an episode every day, I'll do an episode every day. But I'll probably lose my mind very quickly if I get to that point.
Well, you're
It's
doing
an
good work,
honor.
man. It
Appreciate.
has a lot of impact on a lot of people that you'll probably never talk to. That's one thing I'm learning too in this business. You just don't I don't interact with everyone that comes into the company as a client. You certainly don't interact with everyone that listens to you, right? But, you're having some sort of impact, and by the tenor of this interaction we've had for a couple hours, I can tell it's majority positive. And so you are having positive impact, and you're having positive impact on people that you'll never talk to or hear from, but it's there.
I appreciate that. It's we're always being assessed, and I just want to be a I
Glad
just
to make
want to be a
friends.
positive light in the community moving forward. And what did I say? Yeah, I want to be a better Green Beret in retirement than I was in uniform. I think that's a pretty good goal. I've already, in my mind, I thought I was gonna everything I was gonna do was gonna be in all the good I was ever gonna do for the community would be in uniform, and I have now thought about it, I have overshadowed everything I did in the military in the 1 year with lesser known operators, and, can't wait to do the rest of them. So, we'll see how things are. You got anything for me, brother?
No, man. God bless you. Thanks for having me on here. And, on the other side, seriously, you ever need anything, or if you're ever like, hey, I want to get this dude on, maybe I know him. I don't know. I'd love to help you out any way I can.
I appreciate that. Bye, everybody.